There we go. Hi. So thank you guys for joining this event. And you can watch this at a later time too. So my second book in Mr. Willifred's Great Adventure series, this is called Mr. Willifred's Great Adventures Book 2. It has the coolest cover thanks to my awesome publishers. Thank you guys so much for working with me. Hopefully you guys can see this. I tried to turn on some better lighting. So just really cool. We have like up top, you have the little sunrise or sunset, and then you have our little Egyptian character over here, ancient Egyptian character, because this is historical. They're supposed to be in ancient Egypt, the pyramid predicament. And then on the cover, we just have this beautiful picture, and it's a little hard to see, but you have these really pretty colorful columns in the background, which is something that was in ancient Egypt that I did describe in the book. Most of the book is historically accurate. I did do a lot of research to make sure that it was as historically accurate as possible, but it was so far in the past, there are still some things that, historians are a little bit unsure of, but hopefully you guys enjoy this. So it was really super fun to research and to write, and it made me laugh out loud several times. It's just really funny. I'm super proud of book 2. And then on the back, you have this really cool, very colorful images that are representative of ancient Egypt during this time. So I'm going to read to you the back cover, and then I will go ahead and read chapter 7 is what I'm going to read to you guys today. So you can purchase the paperbacks right now. They are available on Amazon. It is $8 even to purchase paperbacks. And then on September 6th, so coming up this week, you can purchase the Kindle versions. And I'm not sure exactly how much the Kindle version will be, but usually the Kindle version is a little bit less expensive than purchasing the actual paperback. So super looking forward to that. And on the back it says, if you have read Mr. Willifred's Great Adventures Book 1, that would be wonderful because you would kind of know the characters, but you can still read this book even if you haven't read Book 1. So just know that we're going to be mentioning some characters that have already been introduced, but I do kind of let you know who they are and a little bit about them before we get into book 2. So you could still enjoy book 2 if you haven't read book 1, but book 1 definitely helps you to know the characters a little bit better. So on the back it says, if Freddie thought traveling through time to medieval London was crazy, he hasn't seen anything yet. His wife Susan would like nothing more than to focus on helping their newly adopted grandson, Bayard, to adjust to present-day London and to guide their granddaughter Sylvia through school. Unlike their grandparents, Bayard and Sylvia long for adventure and to ace their school project on ancient Egypt by seeing it firsthand. Ancient Egypt is a place of mystery to some, but not anymore for the Willifreds. The family travels through time to the 18th dynasty during the co-ruling reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III and his stepmother Hatshepsut. The Willifreds encounter obstacles in ancient Egypt through battling the natural elements, escaping the wildlife, and being introduced to a group of people who may be friend or foe. Freddie and Susan know they're capable of anything, but that doesn't mean they want to. Sylvia and Bayard get more than they bargained for in ancient Egypt and promise to always listen to their grandparents in the future. That is, if they make it home alive. So who knows? So I hope that kind of intrigues you guys. This was just so much fun to put together. And researching this time period, I chose Hatshepsut. So she's super interesting. And her stepson was Thutmose III. So they were co-rulers, which was kind of rare during that time period. And what's interesting is the ancient Egyptians would put up these huge statues, and the statues were meant to look imposing because they wanted to make sure that anyone who was opposing them would understand that they were powerful, that they were strong. And so Hatshepsut even though she was a woman, a lot of the statues of her look very masculine, which was interesting. And she was one of the only women that was, obviously later on we have Cleopatra. I chose not to do Cleopatra on purpose, just because she was kind of later. She wasn't quite as far back in history as the ancient Egypt I wanted to portray. But yeah, it's super interesting to have a woman there as co-ruler with her stepson, and just very interesting time period. So I'm going to read to you chapter 7. This starts in the book. It's on page 54 if you have the paperback copy. And hi, Christopher. Thank you for liking. And if you guys who are present, if you have any questions, just please let me know. I'm happy to share, any questions that you guys might have. So this is chapter 7 of the Pyramid Predicament. Sylvia and her grandfather began their tumultuous trek into the hot desert sand. Sylvia couldn't help but be a bit taken aback by the way her grandfather appeared so different, with his shaved head and different clothing. He was squinting in the sunlight. "You know, Sylvia," said Freddie. Sylvia looked over at her grandfather. "I always liked being in warm places, but, sometimes just looking at the pictures are nice rather than actually being there." Sylvia nodded. "Grandpa, would you like to try on my wig? It really helps keep the sun off my head." "Maybe," said Freddie. "I don't know." He was breathing heavily. The duo were attempting to follow the footprints Bayard had left in the sand. As it was barely windy and Bayard had set off fairly recently, they were able to somewhat clearly follow the path Bayard had left. It looked like they were closing in on a city up ahead. Sylvia was in awe of the glinting beauty she could see even at this distance. She could see pyramids, but not the brown pyramids she was used to. They were enormous, shining, bright white. The tips were golden and sparkled brightly back in the light of the sun. And I'm going to stop right there really quickly. So I just wanted to share that I hadn't known this before I started doing my research for this book, that the ancient Egyptian pyramids were white and they sparkled, and then they had a gold tip at the very top. And that was so interesting to me because my dad went over to Egypt and I saw these pictures of him with the pyramids, and that's kind of how you think of the pyramids, as being kind of like a tan, kind of slightly dilapidated, but obviously at one time they were, perfectly pristine, and I never knew they were white. So super interesting. And I tried to kind of portray that on the cover too. So they're very set looking. So anyways, yeah, I thought that was super interesting. So, "Well, this'll be interesting," said Freddie. "I hope Bayard's keeping his head about him." Sylvia nodded. "I hope these tracks last until tonight so we can get back home easily." Her and her grandfather embarked cautiously towards the city, which was growing closer and closer. "Glad we have this water," said Freddie. "Your grandmother sure knows how to pack for things." Just then, a man who appeared to be a worker from the Egyptian city appeared at the top of the sand dune that they were on. The city was about a mile out. Still, this man had a cloth tied around his head and was in a similar garb to what Freddie and Bayard had transformed into. "Hey, you," the man said, pointing at Freddie. "Hey, you should be down here helping us with the pyramid." Freddie looked at the man with a start. I think you might be mistaking me with somebody else," Freddie said. No, of course it's you," the man said. "Come on, we need to get to work." Okay, I'll be right down," said Freddie. "You go on without me. I'll be along shortly." "All right," the man said, turning around and starting to jog back down the dune. "But we're waiting on you," he called back. "We could use all the help we can get down here." The man continued down the dune back towards the city. Sylvia looked at her grandfather. "Building a pyramid? Grandpa, I don't want you doing that. That's hard work. It'll take you all day. We won't be home in time." "Don't worry, I'm just trying to get rid of him," Freddie said. Isn't it strange? I didn't realize we would be able to speak the same language. Yeah, and he understood you too. Maybe it's a part of our ability to fit in, like our clothes changing, Sylvia said. I don't know, said Freddie. Let's just try to lay low, sneak around that guy, grab Bayard, and get home. Freddie sighed. If we were home, I'd be at Dolsey's right now. The duo pressed forward towards the city. They could slowly hear the sounds of the hustle and bustle begin to grow louder and louder. The orb of the hot sun above was beating down on them. As they walked down the sandy dune towards the city, the air appeared to be dustier as the movement of people living in the bustling city of ancient Egypt came fully into view. As they neared the city, the enormous, looming architecture made with such exquisite care and astounding precision came into clear view. Sylvia's eyes grew wide with amazement. She had never seen such detail. Okay, and I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to give away too much, but hopefully you enjoyed the beginning of chapter 7. So that was super fun to read with you guys. This book is just, I'm so proud of it. People kept asking like, how did you have time to write book 2 and stuff? And honestly, I didn't. I did not have time. I was so busy, and I would just, every time I had a moment to myself, I would just sit and just write. And this story just came together. And there was a point in time where I was like, I need to stop everything, and just kept on going. And it was almost like the story just helped to write itself, because the events that happen and the adventures that they go on, I knew kind of what I wanted to include, but they really just came together, and it's super fun. It's a really cool adventure. When I read it, I could just picture it. When I wrote it and when I read it, I could picture the scene happening. And even when I would go back and edit things, and something new would come up, and it'd be like, oh, this would be so awesome to put into the story. And Egypt is just a place that is so fascinating. I mean, ancient Egypt had so many amazing inventions that really helped our life today to be what it is. I mean, from their medicine to the way that they did things, their food, just really cool. So this was so fun to put together, super interesting. And the kids in it, the kids are starting to get older, so every book they'll be a little bit older, but they'll learn something new and kind of grow a little bit. And I hope that both kids and adults will enjoy reading it, because I know I love reading it. I know kids love reading it, and I hope that kids can read it with their parents. That's kind of my dream. I would hope that families can read together. I know it's so hard to sit down and just read a book. We have, Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and all these movies and stuff, but reading is so important. It really, it creates pathways in your brain. It can help prevent all kinds of, it's said to help prevent Alzheimer's and things like that when people read regularly. Not saying you have to read this book particularly, but just do some reading on a regular basis. It definitely helps people to stay sharp. And I hope with kids that a fun adventure like this will help them to enjoy reading too. And so growing up, I read all kinds of cool books, and I'm so happy to get this book out there. And I hope that people enjoy reading it. And if you guys have any questions or comments, just let me know. So September 6th, Pyramid Predicament is available and live on Amazon. You can get it, both the Kindle version and the paperback at that time. And if you would like a paperback, you can get that at this time too. So thank you guys so much for coming. If you have any questions, just leave them below, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thanks. Bye.